A project launched to tackle gender-based violence in the workplace. A 46-year-old man dies after being electrocuted while at work at a St. George business place. Several $1 million being provided for a renewable energy response to climate change. And in sports, Windies women head coach ready for first assignment against Australia.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Good evening, I'm Pearson Bowen. Barbados is making headway in its efforts to introduce a workplace policy for gender-based violence. Several local and regional employers have signed on to a special project to implement the plan. Wendy Burke has the details.
The official statistics state that 1 in every 5 women is impacted by violence in the workplace. However, the Labour Minister believes Barbados and the region's numbers could be higher, but data is not always available. Colin Jordan says this policy is not about compliance with international organizations and their programs, but about doing what is right. Minister Jordan says gender-based violence has impacted women and girls globally with a greater frequency than males, but both are negatively impacted by it.
Violence and harassment in the world of work and at work causes harm to individuals, causes harm to families, causes harm to businesses and to the wider society. It affects people's lives. It affects people's dignity, their self-esteem, their health, their well-being. It also worsens inequalities in societies and undermines business productivity. There should be no place for and no tolerance for violence and harassment.
The president of the Caribbean Employers Confederation commended all those companies that have endorsed the implementation of the Spotlight project.
Among the key milestones of this first stage of our Spotlight initiative was the creation of a gender-based violence workplace policy template, backed by a toolkit, communications materials, and training programs. We commend all employers and our partners in the labor movement for their endorsements. Indeed, ours is the only program that has been granted Phase 2 funding. This, however, should be seen as a humbling assessment of the ongoing potential of the program to impact our workplace for good.
A memorandum of understanding was signed by local companies and the labor officials, along with the UNFPA, the United Nations and the European Union, who are all on board with the project. Wendy Burke, CBC News.
A 46-year-old man is dead after he was reportedly electrocuted while on the job at an ice manufacturing company in St. George. Word of this from Police Inspector Glenda Carter-Nichols, officer in charge of the District B police station. She, along with a team of officers, including Station Sergeant David Ford, visited the scene of the incident, which occurred around 20 minutes to 12. Inspector Carter-Nichols tells CBC News the male worker who just started the job was handling a long metal object being hoisted by a crane onto a roof when it came into contact with electrical lines, causing him to be electrocuted. Police say the man, whose identity was not released up until news time, was working on the property of Glacial Pure Ice Plant in Salters, St. George.
About 11:40 hours, a general worker was handling a piece of metal which was being guided into the building by a crane, and that piece of metal came in contact with the power lines and he was electrocuted and he fell. He was transported to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital by ambulance and later succumbed to his injuries.
Barbados and other countries in the region are getting another major boost in their efforts to address climate change issues. The United States government will be providing several million US dollars in financing to facilitate a smooth transition to renewable energy through the Caribbean Climate Investment Program. This was revealed by Linda Tagliatella, the US ambassador to Barbados, at the launch at the Hilton Barbados Resort.
We recognize that the private sector has difficulty assessing the resources necessary to build resilience to the climate crisis. The CCIP will offer an opportunity for businesses to assess funding and technical assistance to advance the transition to renewable energy and energy efficient. To meet these goals, the United States is providing $23.5 million to collaboratively address key climate challenges with particular emphasis on transition to renewable energy. 11 Caribbean countries, including Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, will have access to this funding.
Meanwhile, Barbados, in expressing appreciation for the United States assistance, has been stressing the link between the impact of climate change and energy transitioning. Minister of Business and Energy, Senator Lisa Cummins, says Barbados is continuing to work to upgrade its capacity.
We have approved over 205 megawatts of renewable energy applications in the country. Our grid, as it stands, and as is managed by the Barbados Light and Power, cannot, however, onboard more than 100 megawatts in order to make sure that we have grid stability. So immediately, the problem is clear. And we are very clear on the Barbados Light and Power side, on the government side, on the regulator side, that the gap between 100 megawatts at capacity and the 205 megawatts that have already been approved and the 333 megawatts in the system, we have to find a solution.
Barbados is continuing efforts to improve its readiness for tsunamis, and part of that plan involves sensitizing the media about those types of natural events. Several media workers attended a training workshop to help clear up some common myths about tsunamis yesterday. Trevor Thorpe was there.
Sure, Minister Mullins has already been designated a tsunami-ready area. According to coastal planner with the Coastal Zone Management Unit, Fabian Hines, 2 other areas will soon be accredited with the designation after meeting the criteria.
Hopefully this week we will have Christchurch West awarded tsunami-ready recognition. We're hoping to have St. James Central recognized later down the year, hopefully. And then we already have other constituencies, St. Andrew, ready to go, part of St. Michael, etc. So people are saying, when will we be next in terms to go through the program to become tsunami ready? It's an iterative process, so you don't just get awarded tsunami ready. Every 4 years, there's a renewal process as well.
But Deputy Director of the International Tsunami Information Center Caribbean Office, Krista G. von Hillebrand-Andrade, says debunking myths about tsunamis is the biggest challenge facing Barbados and the region.
One of the biggest myths is that tsunamis don't happen in the Caribbean. And that's not true. There have been over 80 tsunamis that have affected different coastlines of the Caribbean. Over 3,500 people have lost their lives from these type of events. So it's real. This hazard is real for the Caribbean. Another one of the myths is that, they don't happen. Since they don't happen that frequently, some people think that they're never going to happen at all. And, well, that's a problem, because the fact that they don't occur frequently does not mean they're not going to happen.
But the international weather expert has high hopes for the region in its effort to ensure tsunami-ready preparedness.
But I think really the most important, myth that we have to, debunk is that there's nothing we can do. And there's so much people can do to get ready for a tsunami. They can know their evacuation zones. They can know where they're going to go. They have a family plan. They're ready to run at a moment's notice. They know how they're going to receive official tsunami warnings. They know how to recognize natural tsunami warning signs. And that's what Tsunami Ready is about, is getting communities prepared, because we can empower ourselves. So when that tsunami strikes, whether it's the Barbados, whether it's Puerto Rico, whether it's Costa Rica, that the people are ready to respond and lives are saved.
The Tsunami Sensitization Workshop has also brought the media up to date with some of the plans of the Coastal Zone Management Unit. Trevor Thorpe, CBC News.
We'll take a break here, but coming up, the Transport Board prepares for back to school. The Transport Board has been making preparation to transport thousands of school children when they return to the classrooms next week. Chief Operations Officer Linda Holder says the board's primary responsibility is to ensure students are moved back and forth in a safe manner.
It isn't that we do not care about other commuters, but there is a responsibility to make sure that the most vulnerable in our society, in this case students, are not standing on the side of the road for extended periods. So we will deploy buses from as early in some instances as 6:30. There are services going to the law school that commence, and we run some cross-country services as well. Everything doesn't come out of the terminal. And some of those services start as early as 6:30 in mornings to get students up to law school. And that is because even though persons think you shouldn't have to leave home so early to get to school, there's a lot of traffic on the road. And law school starts at 8. So if you're coming from anywhere other than St. John, you're going to need more than an hour to get there, just to get through the traffic.
The Transport Board is improving its communication, and inspectors will also be deployed to 4 rural schools to manage and monitor the bus service. These are the Darrell Jordan Secondary, the Lodge School, Grantley Adams Memorial and the Allen School. Ms. Holder says major maintenance has been carried out to ensure the buses are safe.
Right now you will find that we have a number of buses off the road because we are going through the checks again to make sure that when school reopens next week, we have everything in place. So there's a lot of technical work going on with the quality assurance team and our service providers. You have UCAL, you have Simpson Motors, you have LNN. There are a number of service providers we work with. Mega Power does all the electric buses to make sure that 1, our staff are trained, and 2, they are equipped with everything they need to be equipped with to keep the buses safe for the passengers.
Well, those of you who were outside around 20 minutes after 7 last night, you were fortunate to get a glimpse of a very fiery spectacle. And that event was a meteor passing through space and not a comet as many of you thought. The explanation from President of the Astronomical Society, David Marshall, who has also dismissed the notion of it being satellite material or even space junk. The Astronomical Society president says he has also been bombarded with calls following the sighting of the phenomenon last night, with some believing it to be Nishimura, which is a comet expected to be traveling through space around this time. He, however, notes Nishimura cannot be seen with the naked eye and would have to be viewed with a telescope because of its distance, while this meteor was clearly seen with the naked eye at various vantage points around the Eastern Caribbean, even as far north as Dominica.
It wasn't a comet, it was a meteor, and the distinction there is that meteors actually refers to the streak of light that you see when a small fragment, sometimes a rocky fragment, well, rocky as in metallic, and then also rocky as in containing a mixture of metal and silica. When those small fragments enter Earth's atmosphere, traveling at high velocity, they burn up and they create that streak of light that we call a meteor, right? So what happened last night? It just was a larger than normal fragment of a meteoroid or an asteroid. It burned up in Earth's atmosphere over the Eastern Caribbean.
Well, there's great concern about the threat to the survival of the hawksbill turtle. The animal's nesting season runs from June until November, and those mainly responsible for ensuring their well-being during and after the nesting season would like to see a greater effort to help them return to the sea safely. Director of the Barbados Sea Turtle Project, Carla Daniel, blames a rodent problem in the south of the island and other predators for negatively impacting the number of hatchlings that survive and make it to adulthood.
We've had issues with rats, and this was years, like over a decade ago. Within the last 5 years, there's been a significant resurgence. And within those 5 years, previously, our issues with rats were primarily rats attacking hatchlings as they came up. They would maybe go into the grass and the rats would attack them. What we're seeing now is rats are actually digging down into the nests and eating the incubating eggs. And they're also, after the eggs have incubated and the hatchlings have torn their way out of the shells, now they're still down in the sand, the rats are digging down into the nests and they're eating the hatchlings before they're able to emerge.
Ms. Daniel is worried that some people are potentially breaking the law by taking the turtles away from the beach. She said the team recently received what was perhaps one of the strangest calls ever after hatchlings were observed in the area of the Ivy St. Michael.
And these kids had been playing and they found them, told one of the kids' parents, mother called the police called us. So I went, and she actually went with the children, and we went back to the area where they found them. We found one squished in the road. We found another one a little further down the road in a driveway. We found one at somebody's house. So in total, we found quite a few hatchlings. And what happened here is still a mystery.
Time now to head over to sports and Damien Best. Damien, good evening.
Good evening to you. Good evening to our viewers and listeners. We start with this one. A dream come true. That's how the new West Indies women head coach Shane Dietz has described his appointment. Dietz takes over from Jamaican Courtney Walsh and will lead the regional women on next month's tour of Australia. The 48-year-old, who was the head coach of the Bangladesh and Netherlands women's teams, outlined elements of his coaching philosophy to CWY Media.
On the field, there's lots of talent, but we really got to enhance and bring that talent, organise that talent together. And a lot of those things off the field we'll be working on, the team culture, leadership within the team, and particularly when the girls are away from the team environment, back on their islands and own countries, that they'll be able to do some work and keep up their cricket and fitness levels and other off-field personal development things that we'll be working on.
He also said the Tour of Australia was a chance to test the strengths of the players. The regional women will play 3 T20s and 3 ODIs in Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne.
Each place in Australia has its unique characteristics as well, so we'll be using those in our selection and game plans and tactics to what suits the best pitch. It's quite early in the Australian summer, so particularly a place like Melbourne, it could be 25, 30 degrees and it could be 15 degrees, so we're going to have to be a little bit flexible. So the conditions may change a bit, but Sydney and Brisbane will be great venues, and all the venues are really great, and so we're going to have some good quality pitches to play on, which will suit our way we want to play cricket.
Well, Jordan Johnson scored an unbeaten 133 to help the West Indies under 19s to 251 for 8 at stumps on the second day of their unofficial youth test against Sri Lanka under 19s in Dambulla. His knock has included 16 fours and a 6 as the Windies finished on 251 for 8, as I mentioned before, in their second innings, a lead of only 52 runs. Sri Lanka resuming from their overnight score of 191 for 4 after dismissing the West Indies for a mere 127. They amassed the first innings total of 326. Nathan Seeley took 4 for 82, while Isaiah Thorne and Tariq Edward took 2 wickets apiece. Well, Ghana Amazon Warriors are currently playing the Jamaica Tallawahs in match number 25 of the Republic Bank Caribbean Premier League at the Providence Stadium in Guyana. The Warriors are placed second in the table and are yet to lose a match. A win tonight will help them dethrone Trinbago Knight Riders from the top of the points table. Meanwhile, the Tallawahs are currently on a 4-match losing streak and are placed 5th. They will be desperate for some wins to make the playoffs with 3 matches to go. Well, Poland stands between Barbados and a chance to compete in the Davis Cup World Group 1 playoffs. The two teams, who have never clashed before, will battle on Friday and Saturday in singles and doubles tennis action. Host Poland is set. Well, they are the higher ranked side in the Davis Cup competition at 52nd and Barbados 54th in the world. Barbados are coming off a 3-2 victory over Pacific Oceania at home and will be boosted by the return of veteran player Hayden Lewis from injury. Lewis and Barbados' number 1, Darian King, are expected to feature in the doubles component, with other options in Kaipo Marshall, Xavier Lawrence and Stephen Slocum at their disposal for the singles. Speaking to CBC Sports, non-playing captain Damien Applewhite says they have been met by brilliant sunshine since arriving in Poland, and the tie has been switched from indoors to an outdoor fixture.
It's going to be a challenging tie. Poland is quite strong. They bat very deep, if I use a cricket cliche. Their number 1 is Herbert Hurkacz, who is a top 20 player, former top 10 player. He just came off the US Open, albeit he lost very early. I'm not too sure if it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. It could be a good thing that his confidence is not as high, or it could be a bad thing that he's fresh. So you got to take it as it is. looking down the order of their team, they have some world-ranked players like top 700 in the world, and they also have quite accomplished doubles pair. With one of the guys ranked in top 20 in doubles, and the other one top 200 in doubles. So it's actually a quite tough team. We are the underdogs because they're seeded 12. But we're going to treat it like any other tie, put our best foot forward, trust our preparation, and try to give a good performance come Friday.
Tonight's business report is sponsored by Digicel Business. Better solutions for better businesses.
In business tonight, the design of private and public sector buildings in Barbados is one of the important areas to look at when examining the island's resilience when impacted by extreme weather events. It's the view of President of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, James Clark, who was addressing the launch of the Caribbean Climate Investment Program.
Our operational resilience. Can we have distributed resources? Can your business be located in multiple locations? In Barbados, maybe in another island? Do you have off-site backup for your data and your software? This applies very much for businesses. Most of them run on software, especially financial institutions. Access to financial institutions, cash, foreign exchange, all of these things, highly important. Cybersecurity. I don't think I need to mention that anymore. I think we see enough examples of that coming out in the news every day.
Meanwhile, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, is helping Barbados and a number of countries in the region bolster the performance of their energy systems. Deputy Chief of the Party for Energy Sector Reform Program, Gerald Lindo, says the agency is helping countries achieve greater independence as well as helping them to recover from shocks.
The USAID Energy Sector Reform Project is helping 13 countries in the region, most of CARICOM plus the DR, by bolstering the performance of their energy systems over 4.5 years. We're trying to help nations increase or achieve greater independence, more productive and diverse economies, improve their ability to recover from shocks, resilience, with a focus on the energy sector in particular.
As promised, he's back with another look at sports. Damien.
Thanks so much, Pearson. Well, an all-expenses-paid trip to Run Barbados 2023 was the top prize on offer at the inaugural Chinatown 7K staged over the weekend in Trinidad and Tobago. Located in Charlotte Street, Port of Spain, the Chinatown route attracted 1,700 runners and walkers and was the first road race in the capital in over 30 years. In the end, the CARICOM 10K champion, Nicholas Romani, won in a time of 22 minutes. Apart from a $3,000 first prize and trophy, Romani also won the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.'s all-expenses-paid trip to the Run Barbados Marathon events in December. It means his airfare, meals, accommodation, and passes will be taken care of by the BTMI.
I think this Chinatown 7K was a success. I enjoyed this experience because I am from Marapal and I train here all the time, you know. I run from Marapal to Tong to the Savannah, I go back home, you know. So this is kind of my hometown, I would say. And I know the area, so I was glad it was in Port of Spain. I just love running. I love sports. Ever since I'm small, I love competing against people, you know. I just love the competition.
Well, more highlights from the event will be shown on next month's Caribbean Passport on CBC TV 8. Cormier and defending women's champions Deacons were among the winners when the latest round of matches in the senior volleyball knockout preliminaries were completed at the Worldy Gym recently. Let's watch.
Volleyball at the gym. Ladies action first up. This is Hill Road versus Warrens in the far court. Both teams share the opening sets. Warrens drawing first blood 25-13, but Hill Road stuck to the task to level 26-24 in the second. The matchup destined for a five-setter with Hill Road pouring on the magic in the third. Cross court and kill. They would take a 2-1 lead with a 25-21 scoreline. Warrens players not on the same page. After pep talk at the changeover, Warrens rediscovered their form in the fourth and fifth sets. Thunderbolt into space. Then Kanisha Marshall-Webster not able to pull off the dig as Warrens come away to win 25-20, 15-13 in the fifth. Next up, Deacons in fluorescent green playing Carlton. Things were set up nicely for Deacons on this play, but in the end, Julia Lewis picks out the net. Just like the other women's match, things were tied at a set apiece after Carlton took the first 25-23 and Deacons replied 25-21 in the second. On to the third then. Lewis flexing some muscle on this occasion, bursts through the double block, steers down the haters. And for good reason, as Deacons sped to 25-16 in the third. Again, Lewis at the core of Carlton's misery. Well, the bounce back came immediately as Carlton stunned Deacons in the fourth, 25-9, which meant it was down to the fifth. Active hands at the net for the overset. Smarts at both ends of the court. Every point sacred at this stage. The dump into the backcourt cannot be salvaged. But at the end of the seesaw battle, it was Deacons to eventually come away with the W, 16-14 in the fifth set. On to the men's section now. Progressive in blue versus Deacons. Talk about precision. Deacons bringing the heat. Progressive under the pump in the first set. Deacons racing to 25-16. Progressive fared a little better in the second as they tried to match the intensity of Deacons. The short set hammered down the line. But Deacons were ruthless. The elevation, picturesque damage in the middle of the court. Deacons unblemished, winning in three straight over Progressive. 25-16, 25-20, 25-23. Next door, Cormier and Chargers had an epic first set. Both defenses with their share of issues. Free-flowing stuff at the moment. The spectators didn't have much to complain about in this one, as the first set eventually went the way of Cormier as they edged Chargers 25-23. Second set, Chargers on the move, using the angle off the block and in. That was followed by an ace as Chargers bounced back 25-13 in the second. The third and fourth sets were all about the boys. In blue and gold, Sean Simpson with the Midas touch. That was the right side. This was the left. The end is near. Cormier getting a helping hand as they beat Chargers 25-23, 13-25, 25-17, 25-21.
On that note, that's our time tonight. Thank you for spending yours with us. I'm Pearson Bowen. For the crew, to all of you, good night. By God's will, we'll see you tomorrow.